Welcome to another edition of the Power Lunch Podcast. I'm your host, Frederick Douglass Bussey. I'm back and glad to be with you for a late evening edition. I guess we would call this the Power Dinner Podcast. This episode is being taped in the evening because our guest is on the other side of the world in a different time zone, which is less conducive for our normal time of day. And rather than just tape it and play it for you, I like to do it live because the energy is there and we can give it to you fresh and in the moment. We live in an on-demand world, so those of you who want to watch this later, you can. But in the meantime, this will be available for you live and direct right now. Before we invite our guest on, I'm going to just share a couple of things with you in regards to some things we have going on around the podcast. I want to welcome those of you who are watching this live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. You're watching this in the Facebook group, the 7-Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind. Salute to you, those of you who are members. If you know, you know. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube or have not yet had a chance to, click the link below in the subscription in the description. Click the link in the description and do us a favor and subscribe to the channel. The more subscribers we have, the more we're able to spread the reach of what we're bringing to the table. For instance, tonight we've got an amazing guest who has an incredible story about how he and his wife have been able to grow their manufacturing business and create success with that. And I think his story is going to be helpful for those of you who are also on your journey, no matter whether you're beginning or you're at a pivot point when you're trying to get more momentum going in your business and things of that nature, then that should be helpful for you as well. Also, if you've been paying attention to my page, my platforms here on social media, you may notice that we have slowed down a little bit on the live content that we've been producing. And that happens for a couple of different reasons, which I'll speak to in a second. But wherever you're watching from, I would ask that you drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching this from, what platform you're on, what part of the world you're watching from. We're glad to be able to have you here. And the beauty of being able to be live is that if you have a question or a thought, you can share that with us in the comments below. And as always, it's helpful to be able to do those sorts of things, to be able to kind of connect and go a little bit deeper. That being said, also, we are encouraging those of you who are not yet members of the 7-Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind to make that contribution to yourselves, to your life. If you're an entrepreneur trying to build and on the mission of building a larger business, and when I say larger, and we're talking about larger in terms of impact, larger in terms of more freedom, expanding your freedom for yourself and those you love, being able to build more wealth, to be able to have more impact, to be able to spread and share that wealth with those around you, and to be able to create the impact through your business. One of the things that's often discounted for so many entrepreneurs is the fact that we think sometimes that we have to build a business to make the money and then go and do the things. But the beautiful thing about a business is that it's a container for value and that it can be transformative no matter what you're building if you build it the right way, if you build it in a way that continues to allow you to impact people's lives and in so many different aspects. One of the reasons why I do the Power Lunch podcast and why we do this content is because we want to be able to share with you the value of being able to know and understand how you can use your business to be able to impact the lives of the people that you work with, the people that you work for in terms of your clients and your customers, and the people that their lives touch as well. And so that is the ripple effect that we're able to continually spread through what we're doing, and being able to connect to that larger vision, to be able to understand the role that what you're doing can play, whether you're making a widget, whether you're making a software as a service, whether you are in some sort of manufacturing business or you are a content creator, whatever the case may be. All of these things are valuable in and of themselves. And yet the things that we create through our businesses and from that are exponentially more powerful as well. All right. So I want to make sure that you understand that. And if you're not yet a member of the 7-Figure Circle, I'm going to drop that link here and I would encourage you to join that as well. There's a link below in the description. Click that link and request to join. We are now over approaching 1,400 members in the group. We have a ton of master classes, content. We have a ton of free trainings. We have a bunch of great resources available to you. And we're always posting that great content to be able to support you in your journey. Thought pieces. Our newsletter is coming as well. If you're on uh, if you're on LinkedIn, be on the lookout for our Rocket Fuel newsletter, which is coming there as well. And if you join the Facebook group, then you're also going to get access to that also, because we're going to be pushing that out here as well. We've got a lot of great content coming for you. And as a matter of fact, we have another masterclass coming up with tonight's guest. As a matter of fact, we're going to be talking about how you can maximize the pitch process, the proposal process when it comes to bidding for new business. How can you win those bids? How can you be the go-to person in the category of one, top of mind for your potential clients and prospects out there? And there's some things that he is going to share with us in this masterclass. I think it will be extremely valuable, no matter what kind of business you have, no matter whether you're in the service business or whatever the case may be. There's a way of thinking. And if you know anything about me, it's not just the tactics that I like to share, because tactics can change over time. There once was a time when people used to dial on a cell phone, on a landline, and call people. There once was a time when salespeople went and knocked door to door and sold things. And there once was a time when before the social media, you had email and it was prevalent. And the thing about it is that what I tell people is that anything can work, but understanding why things work is so much more important. And if you're not up to speed with that, if you're not developed that skill set and how to think about your business and how to think about providing value to people and how to think about serving and connecting with people and how people think, make decisions, move and live their lives, then you will be struggling with that regard as well. And so I want to make sure that you understand that process that we've got going on when it comes to running a business and building things of value, so that people can feel served and feel understood and feel known through your business. That may sound like a lot, may sound like it's not really that valuable. I guarantee you that it is. And I want to make sure that you understand that also. All right. Our guest is ready and waiting in the green room. And I can't wait to be able to share his story with you this evening. It's going to be exciting. You're going to be glad that you stuck around. With that being said, Power Lunch starts now. Welcome again to Power Lunch Podcast. I'm your host, Frederick Douglass Bussey, and I'm excited to have our guest for the evening. Our guest so it's supposed to be for the day, but it is for the evening. However, it is for day for him. So we've actually flip-flopped. This is Power Lunch for Hugh, our guest, and this is Power Dinner for me, when normally it might be the reverse. Although if we'd done it at the time that we usually do, it would have been a power nap for him and Power Lunch for us. He was joining us up from the other side of the world, and I want to give him a proper introduction because although he's had to travel only through the click of a button, he's actually coming to us from the other side of the world. So I want to be able to share a little bit about him. Our guest today, Hugh Thyer, is a direct response copywriter who has a unique and powerful weapon. He has achieved success in many industries, including finance, investing, and business opportunity, and has many longtime clients who have benefited enormously from his association with them. However, he also runs a manufacturing business with his wife. And a couple of years ago, their business wasn't getting enough sales. The reason, it turned out, was the way they were presenting their price. So Hugh used his copywriting skills to create a new way of presenting their prices, and this document suddenly doubled the number of sales they were getting. And this was without spending one more cent in advertising. Hugh has called this the ultimate, quote, formula, and he believes there isn't an industry which couldn't significantly benefit by presenting prices in this powerful way. And this is what Hugh is here to talk about. Welcome to our guest for Power Lunch Podcast, Mr. Hugh Thyer. How are you, Hugh?
I'm well, Frederick. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, man. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.
No, my pleasure. And as you said, it could almost be a breakfast or an early lunch session for me because yes, I'm coming from the other side of the world, down in Geelong, in the southern part of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, yes, I've got a manufacturing business, so my setup behind me looks a little bit more Spartan than yours. So, but that's why.
No worries. It adds to the authenticity of what you're talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfectly fine. I always like to start out with the origin stories because I think that all of our stories are important, and they lend so much more color to what we're talking about when we're sharing about who we are and the things that we've accomplished in the world. Tell people a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised, and share with us a little bit about what it was like growing up for you as a young lad.
Well, I was born not far from where I am now, in probably 100 kilometres away, 60 miles or so, in another small city called Ballarat. And it was just a pretty crazy kind of childhood. Parents were sort of university lecturers, teachers. That was all good fun, playing in the streets and getting out in the outdoors. So that was good. I wound up in IT. Went through university, did an IT degree, and stumbled on copywriting as I was part of a real estate mentoring program, and the guy there was learning or teaching people how to do copywriting as well, because that was how he grew his coaching business, and I just took to it and loved it. So I've sort of transitioned from IT into copywriting, and one of my clients ran a business making splashbacks, or as you'd call them in America, backsplashes. So basically, anywhere in a kitchen, shower, laundry where you might have tiles or stone, you put this product in. So it's basically a clear acrylic panel that's painted or printed. People do them in acrylic, people do them in glass. This client was trying to start up this business, and he came to me for some help to perhaps try and license it, and we said, we'll actually see if it could work. And 10 years later, we're still here. So I've got a couple of hats on, one running sales copy and the other one running this manufacturing business, which is sorry?
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
And that's where we jumped into this ultimate quote format.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting about that? What's interesting about your story is, and I think it's always interesting because we kind of grow up believing that life is on one path and we're just gonna figure out what we want to do and we're gonna do that thing. Mm-hmm. And yet, the thing that you went to school for, IT, you actually are not doing that in either of your businesses. So, I'm always curious about how your childhood maybe shape the path forward. And sometimes we don't know that until we're looking backwards. But is there anything in your childhood, one, that told you that you think prepared you for being an entrepreneur, and two, that actually prepared you for the kind of split path that you're on either side?
No. Interestingly enough, like my parents both had stable jobs. My father was a university lecturer. My mum was a primary school teacher. So for me, I was always raised, I guess, with the inherent notion that you go to school, you go to university, you get a job, and that's what you do. Mm-hmm. So it took a lot, and I guess I'm naturally geared that way. It took a lot to get out of that comfort zone, to get out of that mindset of this is how life is, to the life that was meant for me is actually quite different. And of course, there's always that constant pull for a long time, that constant pull back into safety and security. But I always wanted to do something for myself. I always wanted to work for myself. I've got that entrepreneurial streak in me, I guess, which is not really in my parents or in my brothers and sisters. So I guess I'm a little bit out there. It's an interesting question and not one that I've really considered before.
I'm also curious because you said that you think you have that streak in you. how did you, was it something that you kind of were aware of but never really nurtured when you were younger, or did it feel like something that you just kind of discovered one day and said, hey, I think I would like to be able to do this? If so, can you remember that moment or how that kind of developed for you?
Look, there's no specific moment for me. I always wanted
Mm.
to try and do something to make a bit extra money. Whether it's, I've always worked. I've always looked for part-time work. I was in halfway through high school, and I remember I was selling study notes that I was taking in class and rewriting them for some of the kids who weren't that good academically, and that lasted a few weeks before teachers found out and shut it down, which was a shame. But yeah, so there's always been that question in the back of my mind. How can I turn something that I've seen into money or into something else?
Mhm.
And I think when you're looking at business, it's always like, how can you put the pieces together?
Right.
One of some of the greatest lessons I've learned in business is that you're really, in a lot of ways, sitting in the middle. You don't want to be doing all the work. If you can be sitting in the middle and controlling all the pieces, it's a great way to run a business. And it's like this manufacturing business. I typically don't get that hands-on with the work. We have people do that. We have the website, social media presence. We've got long-established customers. All the work we've done there has laid the groundwork. So that does some of the heavy lifting for getting customers. We've got digital marketing ads running that does some of the work, distributors, all that kind of stuff. So from a business point of view, it's how do you put all the pieces together and how do you build the systems?
You run a business with your wife.
Yeah.
When you met her, did she seem to have any entrepreneurial aspirations, or was it something that kind of developed that she talked you into, or you talked her into? What was that process like?
Look, in a way, she may have been a little bit like me, I guess, stable job, but she's actually, her parents Greek, so they've always had businesses, so running taxis, house painting, gardening, running shops, things like that. So it's probably a little bit more down her path to look for opportunities and, hey, what we do next. There's always that element of excitement of, what can we do next? What can we do today? How can we do something a bit differently? Because her parents, they came to Australia with virtually nothing and had to go and build everything on their own. So that gave her a lot of resilience and a lot of enthusiasm to go out, to see opportunities. And a lot of people, culturally, I think the sort of the Anglo-Saxon in me, the English side of me, is in that stability, comfort. You sort of get in that comfort zone. But when you're with somebody who's not from that, who's seen what it takes to survive and ultimately thrive, it's a different mindset, because they can see opportunities that other people just walk past, and they probably scratch their heads and go, what are you guys missing?
How long before? Because we're gonna kind of get to the story of the book that you've written and the formula, the ultimate quote formula that has really transformed your business. But how long before you wrote the book and discovered this insight were you running the business together? And what was that experience like for the two of you?
Well, it was tough. We literally started with nothing. So we had no factory, we had nothing. We were literally running it out of a very tiny office. The two of us, we had no manufacturing facilities. We were just setting up the website and phoning people up and emailing anyone we thought could be interested and getting other people to do the manufacturing for us. We then transitioned into doing the manufacturing ourselves, but through third parties. So we would get someone to cut the product, cut the acrylic to shape, and then someone else to spray paint it. So we were always in the car driving, picking this up, taking this there, taking this there, taking this there, packing products on a factory floor in the cold, and it's a lot of work. really to do something like this. But the other option is to buy an established business, and we just no, we're just going to save the money. We're going to do it ourselves, but put all the resources back into growing the business. So that's how we did it, and builds up a massive amount of resilience and resourcefulness. So you learn. I've got a problem. How am I going to solve it? And I think that's something that we've grown to be really good at.
Can you think of a time when was there ever a time when you were thinking, I don't know if we can do this. Like maybe I need to go and get a job, or maybe she was thinking, let's just stop this and go do something else. Because when things get tough, you talked about the resilience. There has to be a point at which it's either do or die, and you decide to do and not to die. But was there ever a point that you got to that point, and what was that like?
No, we're pretty stubborn. We decided this is we're going to make this work. We knew the opportunity in terms of the market size was quite large, so we knew we could do it, and we just rolled up our sleeves and did it. Probably there were times when other people would have folded, but we just absolutely just gunned ahead, regardless. Whether we should have changed direction or not, I don't know. Maybe there were other opportunities we missed by doing that, but it pays off.
I love that. And last question on this, because there are people who are listening who are maybe they're married or they're in a partnership, and they have maybe hit those hurdles, those bumps in the road. Have you and your wife ever had conversations about this? Like how was this alignment so that you just looking across the table from each other or across the floor from each other, and you're in a tough situation, but there's this resolve that you felt together? Has there ever been a conversation about what that's like, or what's required of you to keep going forward? And if so, what's the substance of that conversation, where maybe you have to pick her up or she has to pick you up and encourage you, or what does that look like?
Look, we're both, thinking about it, mentally we're both pretty strong. But yeah, there are times where it's, when things aren't going right, and every business has its ups and downs, when we just need to calm down and just breathe. But you just look, at the end of the day, if something in the business is causing stress, if it's a customer not paying, or a job that's gone wrong, or some disaster's happened, the easiest way to get over that is not, this is just my opinion, it's not to sit back and take some time out and relax. It's to fix the damn problem, because once the problem's gone, the stress is gone. So that's really, it's just a mental attitude of work through it. Especially if you've got people relying on you. We've got family relying on us, we've got kids relying on us, and we've got customers relying on us. So that inspires us and drives us forward to make sure everyone has, particularly our customers, have that good experience and come back. We've dealt with suppliers who have run up against issues and have just collapsed, and it's a horrible experience. Guys, why don't you just fix the problem and help us out? And they don't. So we've always wanted to do the right thing by the people who are paying us money. Yeah.
I'm curious. You've been in business for, you said, around 10 years now.
Yep.
What did you do right? Because a lot of times it's easy to say, well, we screwed that up, or we messed that up over there. I wish we'd done that differently. But looking back, can you say one or two of the things that you definitely did the right way, or you had in place, or you figured out soon enough? And I'm talking about beyond the ultimate goal, because I want to get to that too. Foundationally, what are some of the things that you realize, oh, this is absolutely, I'm glad we did that, or I'm glad we had this in place?
Probably the most important thing would be looking after our reputation. So if you look at our Google reviews, for example, it's probably pushing a couple of hundred of all, 5-star Google reviews. our reputation with our customers is squeaky clean. They come back again and again and again. So that's allowed us to build up a really strong business. We always do the right thing by people. We always deliver exactly what they want. If there is even a small issue with a job, we don't let it go out until it's perfect. People buy into this. People appreciate it. We have people who say that we've provided the and I'm not trying to promote the business because most of your listeners are probably on the other side of the world anyway. But yeah, we get a lot of people who find us some of, if not the most pleasurable people to deal with because of our insistence on getting things done on time and the quality, and that word gets out. In fact, I was a couple of minutes late getting on this call because we literally had a big opportunity land in our lap, which I had to deal with this morning. Our reputation through the local community has potentially landed a pretty good big contract. If you were crap at what you did, if you let people down, if you had a bad reputation, it gets out. And so it's really a case of building on a strong foundation, and it takes time, and you've got to accept that it takes time. And the overnight successes that you hear about all take time. There's no such thing as an overnight success. The other thing that we do well, I think, is we've got a lot of systems in place to make sure people get followed up, to make sure that we know who's got to be called, when they've got to be called, our ability to get in front of our customers by email, by phone, cold customers, to generate leads, outreach through LinkedIn, all the follow-up. We've built up a number of really cool systems that mean we don't lose opportunities. In manufacturing, you've got a lot of businesses that are really sort of manufacturing focused around products, but we've also been able to develop a good marketing system and follow-up systems and client acquisition systems as well. So you've got to have both.
That's really good. And I'm sure that looking at your industry and multiple industries, because you've worked in a lot of different ones, and I actually want to talk a little bit more about some of your vast experience. When you look at people who do the opposite, right? They lack integrity. They lack being able to deliver at a high level. They lack the customer service, the people skills, etc. Is there something that you see that they have in common that maybe, I don't know if you encounter, maybe intuitively you have shied away from? You said, well, I'm never going to do it that way, or well, we know that's a mistake. But can you find a common thread in the way that people think about their business, or maybe even the world in general, that leads them to make that crucial mistake of just not following through and keeping their promises?
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to say those that don't do it necessarily are making a mistake. And it's funny to say that, but look, we do pick up customers who have been to larger suppliers and haven't had a good experience. Now, they've done their economics and they just go, well, this is how I'm doing it. It works for me. But we do get people who have been to, like I say, our competitors, weren't happy with their response, even their mannerisms on the phone. They've been rude to small people. But the reality is, like, every connection you make is valuable. A small customer today could lead through a network to a bigger customer tomorrow and a bigger customer tomorrow. So every connection you make, everyone you talk to, every job you do, you've got to do it to the absolute best of your ability. And that, like I say, that's that foundation that you build a business from, regardless of who they are. Because there's the question of authenticity and integrity as well. So if you are rude and dismissive or give a low quality service to people that you think aren't worth much to you, that comes through when you're dealing with big customers. That attitude is ingrained in you. It's part of your being, and you don't want that. So you just take that approach of, we're going to look after everybody, we're going to do the right thing by everybody, and people could feel that because that's authentically you.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Well, it absolutely does. It's funny because there's two words that I've started using when I talk about business that people don't often use, which is love and joy, right?
Mm.
And what I found is that when people disconnect from other people, right? So when you no longer love what you do, or you don't love the people that you serve,
Mm.
then that disconnect comes there. And so, and it's not, it's a romantic love. It is simply a respect and honor for who that person is and for what you're doing. Like, you can tell a true artsman, a true craftsman. You're when you're working in a space where you're working with tiles and you're making beautiful things, right? They function in a person's life every day. They're going to walk into their
Mm.
kitchen or their bathroom, and they're going to see this product that you put there. And if you've ever lived in a place where you notice there's a shoddy piece of um, artisanship, right, or where the carpenters have left a small gap right there, and if you have to walk in that space day after day, it really bothers you over time.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
But at the same time, if you see this care that lasts over years and years, with the details and everything fits together, it also conveys a level of love and joy to me. And I feel like the thing that probably subconsciously irritates us all the most is when people just act like, not even that they don't care about us, but they just don't care, period. You know,
Yeah.
you, why would you do this thing that you have to wake up and go and do every day and just do it half-heartedly? Why would you treat me with the level of, or the lack of care, um, when you could easily do the opposite and really be passionate about it? And I know that not everybody works a job or has a business that they necessarily love, but the joy that's conveyed when we take the time to work on the smallest details and make sure things are right, to make sure that people are happy, that if
Mm.
they're not at least happy, that they know that I don't really have a solution for you that's going to make you feel happy, but you will know that you were heard and that I did everything possible. Right. I
Mm.
think
Mm.
people respect that even more. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It comes back to, I think, authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's when you make something which can be a splashback for a commercial project, it's not exciting, to be honest. Some projects, when we do prints, we do some amazing prints, like they're exciting and they're mind blowing. But you give something to a customer and you see the photos and you know that their experience was great, and they tell you that their experience was great, and that makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the product that you produce which gets you excited and you fall in love with. You also fall in love with the difference that you make,
Mm-hmm.
and how somebody feels about what the product means to them, but also their experience with you and how that makes them feel as well. And
Right.
the reality is, if you don't have that, it comes through when you talk to them in particular. Mm-hmm. So when they pick up the phone and they talk to you, if that authenticity is not there, if it's not coming from the right place, people pick it up. They know. Right. Little mistakes get made in the production of the work. Your follow-up process, it becomes sloppy. Your deadlines, your timelines become sloppy, and your reputation suffers. So that love and that joy for delighting people and making them feel good, it's currency. It's worth its weight in gold.
I love how you said that. Yeah, it's worth its weight in gold. And I think that sometimes that part of it is discounted, right? It's almost like, and it feels good too. But I think it's okay to seek that as a reward for what you're doing. I want to feel good by making other people feel good about this thing that's not necessarily sexy, right, for most people. But that, I think, is the power of it, because we need people to care about even the smallest things. If you're making the concrete that holds up a bridge, I don't want you feeling like you're just having a crappy day and slapping that thing together, right? Mm-hmm. The care that you take to make sure that those details have been handled correctly, properly, is important, because millions of people's lives will depend upon it as they travel back and forth across that bridge. So, I love how you talk about the reward of things in that regard. And you also, the other side of it, the copywriting. And I want to talk about that because I do think that there is a level of detail, obviously, and a level of care that goes into that. I fell in love with copywriting years and years ago, as a discipline, that I wouldn't say I've perfected or mastered anything like that. But I love the thing that I love most about copywriting is the thought process, the thinking behind it. I'm curious, you discovered this through a real estate course. You're doing something else.
Yep.
Something caught your eye about it. I'd love to hear how you discovered this as a possible path for you and said, I really want to do this. I want to take this turn. Because you were still on the course for IT, am I correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So talk about that a little bit. How you stumbled upon this and decided to make this turn in your life.
Yeah, it's hard to describe perhaps if there was a specific turning point, but I'd gone and I'd been to a 2-day real estate investing seminar. At the back of that was a coaching program. And the guy who ran that coaching program and ran the seminar, maybe your listeners are familiar with Dan Kennedy. He was a big Dan Kennedy fan. Absolutely loved him. Worked with Dan, worked with the best copywriters to put the seminars and the coaching and everything together.
Absolutely.
We were doing like once a month meetings with a group. And after about 7 or 8 months, he started to run out of things to tell us. So he said, well, does anyone want to know how you can double a business in 12 months? So yeah, it was interesting. Teach us about that. So we started teaching direct response marketing and copywriting, and I just something in that notion of being able to put words, assemble words, I guess, for want of a better expression, and get people to do stuff appeal to me. Because like the same product or the same service can be seen in a totally different light. And the whole notion of building out funnels and taking people on a journey and turning them to customers through the power of A, the words on paper, and B, your brain power and working out how to put it all together is just like it's amazing when you think about it. And you probably had that moment too.
It's really it is kind of indescribable, that feeling, but the way that it turns your brain on when you're able to see, if I say this way, if I say, you can say two things, you can say one thing 2 different ways, and it can have completely different reactions in people, right? And I think we all kind of experienced that, but to be able to think the level of thought and care to be able to craft a certain word or put it in a certain order to phrase a question or whatever, I think is extremely powerful. So when you took this skill, you began to work in different. Well, I'll ask you to share the story. How did that evolution start to come about for you in terms of working with other people? Because you've worked in a wide array of industries and things of that nature. So what was that process and that evolution like for you?
It was a slow bit by bit kind of process because I was still working at the time. I picked up a first client through some connections, and the first and the second and the third, you start to meet people who've got influence, who have people in their network who need help. And look, you just grow and you meet more people. And I guess particularly online today with the internet, you can put yourself into situations where you're in groups and in contact with all sorts of people, and then your enthusiasm and your desire to help and to learn and to grow gets noticed. And people that I met 5-10 years ago are still working with me today. So it's a very similar to the manufacturing business. Really, it's just you lay the groundwork, you build a reputation, you become the person that people want to go to. I mean, I don't have a website. I haven't had one for years. All my clients are either repeat or referrals, which suits me fine. But again, you've got that reputation out there in the industry. So once you land a couple of in my industry, once you land a couple of really good clients, you build up an income stream as well. And like I said, I'm doing a lot of work in real estate education, and I've been working with the same guys for a number of years now. Another guy who teaches people how to make money on Amazon, working with him for many years now. So it's a bit of a, when that freelance career is a bit lonely. I've never had a desire to build a big agency and have copywriters working for me or anything like that. It's I like to be hands-on with what I do, because a lot of the results don't necessarily come from being able to write copy. It's being able to think through a problem and come up with a solution as well. So it's part copywriting, part strategist, I guess, nowadays.
No, I like that. Talk about that a little bit, and maybe can you give us an example? I know we're going to talk about the example in your business, but can you think of a time when you had to apply that level of strategy and you were able to solve a problem in a big way for a client?
Oh, look, all the time. I'm even working on some now with like a webinar that I'm doing for a client. We're looking at how we can change up the call to action in there, so it's not just at the end; it's multiple times through. I'm putting a proposal together now for a client who, thank goodness, has a desire to do direct mail, like physical letters for their business. It's something that most people wouldn't do, but we sat down and worked through the strategy, and we've got something that's going to do wonders for his business. Any time that you can insert another component into what they're doing, whether it's mixing and matching emails, landing pages, the funnels, what process do we take people through? Sometimes you'll spot an asset. So another real estate company that I'm working with, they had the ability to offer free house reports on someone's individual property. So we packaged that up as an offer, and we got heaps of leads through offering that to his email database, and that's resulted in leads and sales and all sorts of things. So it's really, there's a strategic element of looking at what you've got. And quite often that doesn't come immediately. So for people who want to work with a copywriter, it may be that the big breakthroughs don't happen on day one. They may happen 6 months, 12 months down the track. Because we, as copywriters, we're always learning as well. So we're always studying and reading and even rereading old stuff that we've read before, which will spark a new idea. You say, hey, maybe I could change up this, or maybe we could write a longer upsell for this and get people booking appointments. For example, we're getting people to book appointments when they register for a webinar with one client, whereas normally we go that to the webinar to the appointment. But if we can get them to book the appointment in first, that's free leads, essentially. So being able to think about the sales process as well. So I've got this notion of there being people on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 is a cold lead, 10 is they're buying the thing, the service or the product, and the person whose business is just got to take them through that process from 1 to 10.
Right.
So one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they get people on sales calls, particularly for big ticket items. They get them on a sales call, or they get them on the phone too early in that piece. Whereas you really want to be able to get them on the phone when they're a 5 or a 6 out of 10. So what you do to prepare that prospect for that phone call is important. And even things like websites and lead magnets and how you educate people before they, in that early phase, before they actually directly contact you is can be super critical as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good, because what I find a lot of times is that, you learn over time that there's a certain amount of preparation that people need to be able to make a decision to buy your product or your service. And a lot of times, if they haven't gotten to that point yet, if you have not provided that, and I find that a lot of times What most business owners struggle with is that they don't have a predictable, holistic process. They may have part of the puzzle, right?
Mm,
They may know what to do when they get you on the phone and talk about stuff. They can be knowledgeable about their product or their service, but not knowledgeable about the entire journey that the customer is going through and
mm,
needs to go through to be able to become not just become a customer, to become a happy customer that will come back time and time again.
yeah. It's the great challenge in business, isn't it? You can
Mm,
work for somebody and you can be good at your job. But just because you're good at
right,
your job doesn't mean you can turn that into a business. Because
right,
being in business comes with a whole host of other skills, even some of the administrative stuff like the money management and the cash flow and all that kind of stuff.
right,
But yeah, there's
right.
the whole, okay, how do I get customers? How do
Hmm.
I handle them? What do I do? And as you say, what process do I put them through on that journey? How do I deliver the product? How do I follow up? How do I make sure that their experience was a good one? How do I get a testimonial or a Google review out of them? How do I manage when I've got too much work or not enough?
Right,
How do
right.
I ensure that I've got a constant stream of clients that aren't costing me too much to acquire? There's a whole heap of things.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. And a couple of things that I'm pulling away from our conversation today is the level of patience, the level of stick to itiveness, or as you
Mm.
call it, stubbornness. Right? You're
Yep.
you're not even considering the ability to quit, and so you have this alternate career of copywriting that you slowly developed over time. And then it also evolved to a point where it overlapped with your manufacturing business, the backsplash or splashback,
Mm.
as you will call it. Um, so you had that business, and then all of a sudden, one day, you had this epiphany
Mm.
that you talk about in the ultimate quote format. Talk to us a little bit about that. I'm hesitant to even ask if it was a sudden thing. Did the light just come on, or was this kind of an evolution? And one day you realized all the data and all the pieces kind of fit, and you started to be able to implement this thing. What was that like?
Well, so we target different markets. So we've got the commercial market, which is different to the do-it-yourself market. So the DIY market are people who are renovating a home or building their own home or doing up a bathroom or kitchen or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So for the DIY market, what we were doing is when people wanted a price, work out the price, give it to them while you're on the phone, or you would send them an email that here's the price, that's it, or a text message or whatever. And the conversion that we were getting was really crappy. It was like 20%. And then it just hit me that I can fix this problem. So I looked at some of the stuff that I'd done before and did a bit of research and a bit of digging through my old material and put together a format for delivering price. Because what happens is when people, and most businesses are guilty of this, when they deliver the price, they're actually it's almost like they're embarrassed. And they
Mm-hmm.
go weak at that point. It's almost like, oh, I'm apologetic, it's $1,000 or $2,000. It's almost apologetic.
Right.
And what that leads to is it leads to people buying on price. So in a lot of industries, people will get 3 quotes and choose the cheapest one, or maybe choose the middle one. But you end up with a situation where people are just buying on price. And that was, of course, our situation too. So people can choose us, people could choose competing products, people could use lower quality products, but they don't know that it's a lower quality product, or they don't know the reason to use our product. So we decided what was important was when they were delivered that price, they
Mm-hmm.
were delivered our entire sales pitch again.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important that you don't go wimpy, because otherwise all they're doing is shopping on price.
Right.
So we
Right.
made that a massive feature. Some things that people don't do when they're on the phone, they may forget to say something, or the conversation may not go in a certain direction. You don't always get the chance to explain everything that's good about what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to deliver the whole package, and that's decision point when they're deciding what to do. Where they're going to go with you, where they're going to go with someone else, where they're going to do nothing at all. That's when you've got to be at your strongest, not your weakest.
Right.
And if all they've got from you is an email with a price, or they've just written the price down on a bit of paper that you gave them over the phone, that's weak.
Yeah.
And it's got to be the opposite. It's got to be strong. So we came up with this thing that I've called the ultimate quote format, which is basically a method of delivering a price. So the best people will do otherwise is they might just use a one page which has got like a scope of works with, what you're getting and the price and taxes and delivery and all that, and that's it. And it's really not good enough, because you've got to resell everything you do again, because people forget what you told them. So I've got a bit of a croaky voice today. People forget what you told them. They get confused. They think that was somebody else. As soon as people get off the phone, they'll forget half of what you told them. Right. 2 days later, they've forgotten 90% of it. And so you're back to competing on price. If you can get that whole presentation in front of them again, including what you told them and what you didn't tell them, when they're making that final decision, it is so powerful. And we went from like 20% to over 50% close rate.
Wow.
Just by doing that one thing.
Wow. I mean, that's a huge jump, because then you don't necessarily have to go out and acquire more customers. You don't have to advertise more to get more leads.
Yeah, exactly. So this is not something where you've got to learn a new technology, a new way, like Facebook or Google, if you're not doing it. You don't have to spend more money on advertising either, because it's getting more sales from the leads you get. So for businesses that are looking to scale up, it's like, it makes so much sense, because you can scale up by spending more on your advertising. But why would you want to throw all that money away on getting leads that could have bought but didn't? So you want to stop. It's like the bucket full of holes. You keep pouring more and more money into this bucket, but instead we plug the holes to keep more money in there. That's the notion behind it.
No, that's a perfect analogy, I think. One of the things that stuck out to me when I read the book, when Dan sent me the book, and for those who don't know, I was introduced to Hugh through a friend of mine, Dan Sorkin, who's a colleague of yours as well.
Yep.
And Dan sent me the book to read, to give a review and give honest thoughts. And I'm reading through the book, and it slowly starts to dawn on me, probably about halfway through the book, and I start thinking, and my brain starts firing with all these possibilities, because I think I was sharing before you hopped on. I was talking about the fact that I love to think about the thinking about the business, like understanding the strategy and psychology of it, because it's transferable across different scenarios. Whereas if you're only being tactical and you're thinking about how can I do this particular thing or this particular skill, then it may only apply in that one context. Running Facebook ads is a very specific skill. It doesn't necessarily translate to running advertising in the physical world or whatever. But understanding how people think and how they are influenced by words, images, stories, their own motivations, understanding who I'm talking to, all those things matter. And so that is transferable. And the thing that came across to me in reading the book was the fact that you talked about it earlier, and I'll ask you to elaborate on this, that it's transferable no matter what business it is, what sort of business you're in, because there is a component to preparing people, preparing the customer to make a good decision. Can you talk about that in terms of the broad reach that it has, no matter what industry that you're in?
Yeah, so the concepts, are transferable. It works for a business like ours, where we're selling a physical product. It works equally well for services as well. The only industry it probably doesn't work in is if you've got a shop and people are buying stuff off the shelf. Other than that, it can work, because there are always questions people have, always things that people want to know when they're making a buying decision. And one of the interesting things about this is people don't, they discount the value of your knowledge when it's common across an industry. So, for example, I give an example of pest control, for example, and you may use the exact same chemicals to kill the bugs as everyone else, so you don't talk about it. But if you do talk about it, you get a great response from the people who read about it, because even if you're using the same chemicals, other pest controllers know that, but your customer doesn't know that. So, it opens up huge opportunity. Right. The process of putting something like this together is extremely valuable as well, because you'll actually gain insights into your own business as you do it, because it forces you to get everything in your brain out on paper. And then you've got information that can then be used on your website, emails, letters that you send to people, and things like that. So, yeah, the process itself is useful in that it really makes you think about your business in a different way. But yeah, the concept is so broadly usable across so many different industries and so many sectors. And at the end of the day, we're all selling to people. People will always go and shop around. They'll always want information about something. And there's I guess a bit of a notion that people don't want to read and people don't want to spend time on things these days because of attention spans. But that's wrong. People will spend the time reading about something that interests them. So if you're buying a car, for example, you don't just look at reviews on the website. You go and you look at the car and check it out, take it for a drive, and all that kind of stuff. People will invest their time in something that's important to them. Right. So if they're renovating, like in our case, if they're renovating, or if they've got bugs in their house and that worries them, they're emotionally involved. If you're getting an electrician or a plumber, or you're hiring an accountant or website designer or photographer to do your wedding, for example, people are emotionally involved, and they will devour information if you give it to them. So our quote for our splashback business is 18 pages long, and there's about 6 pages of images in there. People read it, they go through it because they want to know.
That's really good. Hugh is going to be breaking this down for us in a masterclass inside the 7-Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind. That's coming your way on Tuesday, June 20th. It's going to be 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's exclusively inside the group. So if you would like to learn more about how you can take this process and apply it to your business in particular, he was going to be breaking it down. This is not a pitch session where he's going to be out there just trying to sell you. He's actually going to give you the information. You'll be able to walk away and use this as well. They do offer this service as a courtesy to other entrepreneurs and businesses. They work with you to be able to help you to create this for yourself. And so if you'd like to have more information, you can reach out to Hugh as well. I want to give you the opportunity, Hugh, as I'm thanking you for sharing your story with us. And I think you've dropped a lot of gems about business and strategy in general. But I want to thank you for coming on the show, and tell people where they can connect with you besides the masterclass, which will be happening next week.
Yeah, well, I hope people can join the masterclass because, as you say, look, I break it down, all the sections, how to get the information out of your head onto paper. It's really paint by numbers kind of stuff. But again, if people don't have time, then yes, we can do it for them. But I want to make sure that everyone who's on that masterclass has got the process so they can literally walk away with it and follow and produce this for themselves. Other ways that people can connect with me, they can get me by email, which is, I'll spell it out. It's HUGHTHYER@gmail.com. Or you can look me up on Facebook. I'm the only Hugh Thyer there, so you can get me there. Dan and I have been in the process of building out some website material and things like that, but that's not really it hasn't gone live yet. So, but look, if people want to connect with me, I can send you guys the book that Frederick's read. It's an easy read, and it takes you through the process as well, and guides you in the right direction too. So, yep. Always feel free to reach out.
And people can get the book by emailing you?
Yeah, look, email me and I'll email it back. We are going to have it for sale. One of those things that, when we get around to it. But at the moment, we actually want to get people's feedback as well. We want to put a few more testimonials in there. So I would really appreciate people emailing me and saying, "Hey, can I get a copy of that, please?" And if they enjoy it, then just let us know. Give us a little quote that we can put at the front, something like that.
Look, I'm telling you, if you're listening to this on live or in replay, you need to send Hugh an email and get a copy of the book. I don't know. I'll talk to Hugh about making copies of it available inside the mastermind, the Seven Figure Circle. We may just make that available to members there so they can have a copy of it.
Yep.
But it would be worth it if it was $100 or $1,000. The reason why I'm telling you is because when you understand this, it will allow you to be a category of one supplier, a service provider, whatever you're doing in your business, you will stand alone because you are serving the customer at a higher level. You're going to understand your business, as Steve said, you're going to understand your business even better. You're going to understand your customer better, and you're going to understand why what you're doing is so valuable, and that will make your business more valuable. You're going to make more money. You're going to have more impact. And Hugh is going to break that down for us in the masterclass. So look, it's a no-brainer. You're going to get a free book. You're going to get a free masterclass as long as you're a member of the Seven Figure Circle. And if you want to go deeper, by then you'll have had so much value. I would suggest you just be paying Hugh back by hiring him and Dan to do this alongside you so that you can get the ultimate value out of it. Hugh, any closing words, any other thoughts you want to share with us before we jump off here?
Look, the thing that really excites me about this, and it excites Dan too, and that's why we're working on this together, is that no one else is doing it. So if you want to get good at Facebook ads, there's a million people, and as soon as you come up with a new breakthrough there, everyone's going to copy it. It's
right.
Pretty much everything in your business, except this, because nobody is sending out pricing information like this. I mean, nobody. I've never had anyone send me anything like this. I'd be surprised, Frederick, if you've had many people send you anything like this. When you're in a business and everyone's sending out prices the same way, if you can send out a price in this format, it gets attention, it gets noticed, you get the customer's attention right at that time when they're doing it. It's like the last frontier for business. It's an overlooked opportunity, and like we came across it almost by accident because we're forced to rethink. And I've got that background which allowed me to think of it, but I'll tell you what, man, no one's doing this. No one is doing this. It's a huge opportunity.
I believe if it ever gets widely adopted, people will be looking back and saying, man, I could kick myself for not being one of the first. It's rare that you get to do something. Imagine if you were one of the first people to be able to implement ClickFunnels, or you were one of the first people to do Facebook ads, or among one of the first people to do Google AdWords or whatever, right? Those opportunities, because they were so cheap and very few people were doing it, they literally made people millionaires overnight. And I don't want to overstate the opportunity, but when I read the book and it started really sinking in what I was absorbing, it was transformative for me. And I think it will be for everybody who reads, who joins the masterclass and takes notes, takes advantage of everything that Hugh is going to share with us. Yeah.
Take notes. Be prepared to take notes, because like I say, I unpack the whole thing.
It's good stuff. It's going to be extremely powerful. I'm very, very excited. Hugh, I'm going to let you get back to work because it's the middle of your day there. So I know you've got a ton of other things to handle.
Yep. Thank you very much. And thanks for having me on this morning, this evening for you guys. Real pleasure.
Absolutely. For those of you who've been watching for a second, a minute, or even longer, if you're watching this on replay, make sure you're following us on LinkedIn, subscribing on YouTube as well. As always, for Hugh Thyer, our guest today, I am Frederick Douglass Bussey. And as always, ever forward.